Since 2016, there has been a rise on YouTube of what is known as Black conservative commentators. And at first, these guys were very small in number, and there wasn't a lot of opportunity in this field because it was pretty much dominated by white conservatives or some people who were considered to be white racists. But the Black conservatives came into this space and pretty much identified the same talking points that many of these white people wanted to say, but didn't want to be hit with the racist commentary. And they built quite the audience with a lot of non-blacks. And one of them that was able to do so was former Democrat Candace Owens. Now, Candace Owens used to be against Donald Trump. Then she found out how lucrative it was being for Trump. Well, she went on and did very well. I believe she's even one of the first people to come out with Blexit, which is like blacks exiting the Democratic Party. And nothing is wrong with supporting Donald Trump, but the issue is how she does it. She doesn't just support Donald Trump or the right because of their policies. She does so at the detriment to Black society.
It's a broken culture, it's a broken society, and hip hop is hurting things. But I also want to talk to you about something I've realized. Even if Black Americans are aware and know their history, right? And you can get Black conservatives who understand the history much more, who understand, the ills of the left and what the left has done. But still in that regard, they bring to the conservative side the same bad habits that I was hoping Black conservatives would be abandoning. And what I'm talking about, number one, is conflict resolution. Black Americans do not know how to resolve basic conflicts. Everything has to turn into a fight. I hate you forever. You got to draw lines. It's like you're this gang or that gang. And you still see it happening in politics.
Now, don't get me wrong. Not everything that Candace Owens says about Black dysfunction is false. Many of the things that she says is true. I believe that the umbrage that many African Americans take up with her is, does she really have an agenda with that? This is very important when you're dealing with Candace Owens and her rhetoric. And this was noticed by none other than Tariq Nasheed. Tariq Nasheed has been going back and forth with those on the left and even those on the right for a long time. When you hear that pick yourself up by your bootstrap narrative, well, Tariq Nasheed has already heard that, and typically that does come from the right. And when a lot of those people get help from the government and they get assisted, only to turn around and say, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Now that's important because Candace Owens is going to play into that also. But Candace Owens is also one of those people that wants to tell Black people what to do. And Tariq Nasheed is going to mention a time where Candace Owens actually spoke on a reparations committee against reparations for hashtag FBA or African Americans.
Because I know she spoke at one reparations thing, and we got
like pro it or anti?
She was anti, definitely anti. They put a bunch of, they get the Candace Owens and all these people to speak against it. But then we look at the people who let her get on there. You see, we don't let them get away with that. We look at the Democrats who let her get on there because they know who's going to get on there and say what. If you put a Candace Owens on a reparations panel and this is a serious topic and you are a Democrat and you let it happen, that means you are against reparations too. And we're going to show you how we feel in the voting booth when you do stuff like that.
It was funny because I actually never saw this particular clip, but oh boy, I found it.
I do not think that we deserve reparations for slavery. I was never a slave in this country, and I think that the idea, if you think that you're going to get more than $200 from the government, okay, this entire debate is just it's a joke, okay? It's never going to happen. Do you think that we're the only group? I'm just going to ask you this question that has had something awful happen to them in this country. What about the Jewish people? Should they get reparations for the Holocaust? And do you understand how slippery of a slope is when you start saying reparations? It's the beginning of humanity. The slave trade used to be legal in the UK. They decided to give reparations when they abolished it. You know who they gave reparations to? The slave owners, because Black people were their property legally. It was legal, right? So when they got rid of it, they gave them reparations. The point is that no matter where you go in history, someone was oppressed.
Now, this is interesting. Candace Owens is talking down on reparations, and she's saying, well, we don't deserve reparations, and what about the other groups? So she's integrating herself into the African American community. And I find that odd. Until Tariq Nasheed decided to expose Candace Owens for doing the ungodly. Let's look at what the post was. So Tariq Nasheed shared this post with like an eyeglass, and it says, Candace Owens says she has a Caribbean bias, so she rejects any negative stories pitched to her about Rihanna or Nicki Minaj. I'm not going to say anything bad about Rihanna or Nicki Minaj. Now, Rihanna or Nicki Minaj are both from Trinidad, if I'm not mistaken. But I couldn't believe that she actually would say this until she did.
I want to say just how much I liked this guy. I just had a feel like, okay, I'll be honest. I have a Caribbean bias. My former producer made it very clear to me that I have a Caribbean bias because she'd pitch me stories or like say like Rihanna did this. And I'd be like, I'm not going to say anything bad about Rihanna, or like Nicki Minaj. And she's like, but I have a Caribbean bias.
So that led me to looking at Candace Owens' background. Candace Owens, according to Wikipedia, is also of Caribbean American heritage through her grandmother, who is originally from St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. Okay, her paternal grandfather was Robert Owen, a Black American who was born in North Carolina. So what it shows to me is that, okay, she has one relative or some relatives that are African American, but she has a bias towards those people who are from the Caribbean. So when you hear about the detriment that somebody like Nicki Minaj is doing with her music, you don't really want to talk about it. And your own host, who's probably a white guy, is saying, hey, listen, you have these situations going on with Rihanna, and you have these situations going on with Nicki Minaj, but you have a Caribbean preference. You prefer them. Okay, why don't you talk about Caribbean reparations? Why are you so engulfed in the African American community when clearly you have a preference for Caribbeans? And I hate to say this, and this is not to be offensive, but in America, the people who have done the most for the Black struggle are the hashtag FBAs or African Americans, simply because we are in greater number. So why do you have this smoke for the group that's giving you all the opportunities and those Caribbeans in America? It's crazy because Nicki Minaj was in Trinidad. Hate to say this, no offense to my Trinidadian brothers, I have friends from Trinidad, but we all know that Nicki Minaj could not get on in Trinidad. She couldn't. Her life would have been completely different had she stayed there. We all know it. What about Rihanna? Rihanna was born actually in Barbados, not Trinidad. If she would have never come to America, would she have ever had the opportunity that she has now, especially with Fenty? No, both of those people, including you and your ancestry, were able to get on because of African Americans. And it's interesting because Rihanna and Nicki Minaj have both said something very disrespectful about African Americans, especially Rihanna when it came to Martin Luther King. Yet, when it comes to their culture, they want to protect it. Remember in 2021, Michael B. Jordan tried to start this particular rum called J. Overt. Maybe I'm saying it wrong, but he wanted to have this rum line. And again, remember, hey, we supposed to be all Black and all family, right? No, Nicki Minaj and all of those people were like, no, this is the Caribbean people. You know what I'm saying? Change that name. You can't have our name. Oh, but they all in our community with all of their ratchet stuff. Like Nicki Minaj, the culture that she brings to the African American community, the Blacks, it's ratchet, it's ghetto as hell. It's BBLing it up. But you don't have no problem talking about that, but you want to be considered to talk about why we shouldn't get reparations? Go tell the people in Trinidad Tobago why they shouldn't get reparations. But you would never do that because you want your Caribbean people to get reparations. So why don't you just be for your group? I don't have a problem with just being for your group. And that's what I see a lot of brothers and sisters, not all, but I see people doing it. Let me tell you a story time. Story time music! I was talking to this lady who happened to be from Rwanda originally. She grew up in Uganda. She's a lady that lives in Maryland. Now, you will find a lot of Rwandese in Uganda or, just because of the immigration here. And she was talking about she didn't want Donald Trump to become president because she wanted more of her Rwandese and Ugandan relatives to be able to go to the United States and get citizenship. Well, then I asked her, well, what about the African Americans that are already there? She said, what about them? I said, okay, well, how would you feel if those people were able to come into Uganda and get citizenship and be able to participate in this economy? Would you like that? She's like, oh, no, I got a problem with that. I said, of course you do. Of course you have a problem with that because you're biased. You would like your people to be able to get on whatever they want, but you have a problem with our people getting on. That's crazy, right? And that's exactly how it can be. And that's the same thing with Candace Owens. You're just being disingenuous. There is a lot of Caribbean crime that goes on. Of course, you have a lot of African-American crime, but you got people doing crime in the black communities too in America. You got Haitians that do crime in Florida. You got Caribbeans tearing up stuff and doing certain things in certain places, while at the same time they are being successful, so are the Africans. But hey, when it comes to them, you don't have a problem with that. And this is not to start a war with our brothers, because we love you. But what I'm saying is, when they're doing something wrong, let's not talk about that. But let's always demonize the African American community. And when you're doing that, people just shouldn't trust you because you're not being genuine. If what you were saying came from a place of love, it would be okay. But it's not. It's coming from a place of hatred. And you are a hater. So guys, what do you think? It's your boy O'Shea Duke Jackson back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Junk. I appreciate you for all that you do. Subscribe, hit the bell. We're out.